for tomorrow.
Okay. Is she doing the lunch for tomorrow?
Of course.
Yeah. Just try and hold her down. Okay.
We should keep her in our prayers. When I talked to her the other day,
Who is that?
Paula.
Who?
Paula.
Oh.
She had just come back from cooking for 30 women at the women's club. And she was saying how tired she was. And I said, well, I thought you were going to give stuff up. And of course, she was like, well, I can't give up everything.
So let's list what she's given up.
Serving on the vestry. That's just about the only thing I can figure.
Okay, Paula. For all of these things we pray. Amen. Oh my goodness gracious. Hey Sharon, look at what book I got.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Have you started it?
I've looked through it. This could possibly be the basis of what we do at Women's Mini Week.
Oh, I really don't want to come, but that's tempting.
It is. We'll see. I'll let you know if I actually decide on it. But there's some really interesting things in it.
Wouldn't it be fun to do that? Have you read the part about the temple where they
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a really neat thing to do?
Yeah. And I'm okay. So in this book, this is written by a rabbi, and Sharon sent out the link to her talk with Reverend Winnie Varghese. And she alludes to this ritual of healing in the temple. And it's what strikes me so much about it is that it is so not different than what I taught everybody at the camp last year with the Niobrara circle. That and so these things, circles, and have so much ritual understanding, I think, in our fiber. We're not really built on ladders and hierarchies. We're built much more for circles and dances. And I think ancient practice bears that out.
And I think it's interesting how she said that when she first read about this ritual, where at Passover everybody goes up to the temple, and people would go in through a gate and circle to the right, and everyone would do that. Thousands of people would be circling to the right, but people who had something heavy on their hearts, an illness, or they were mourning, would circle to the left. And when the people circling to the right would see them, they would say, what happened to you?
Yeah.
And listen to their trouble and offer a blessing.
Yeah.
And she said that when she first read about that, what she thought of immediately was the Hajj, where people go and circle the holy space. And, we're not so much different from one another.
No, we are not. Not at all. Yeah. So some of the words she offered for blessing were may the one who dwells in this holy place hold you with love as you navigate this chapter of darkness. Or may you be surrounded by friends and loved ones in community as you walk through this dark chapter. Just, the whole idea of us being able to to bless one another, in the midst of brokenness, and to acknowledge the fact that even those who started the circle to the right, are probably as broken and lonely, just not in the place yet to tell the truth about that. And I think that that's, I just think that that's incredibly powerful. That when we are in that place to tell the truth, there is a ritual that we might engage in that would enable us to begin healing. Or the other analogy is that there's never a once and for all. That, you know, that chapters and journeys are filled with broken hearts and healed hearts, and then broken hearts and healed hearts. Yeah. So that, if you haven't watched the entirety of that book conversation between Sharon Brous and Winnie Varghese, it's well worth your time. And did you hear what they sang at the beginning? Sanctuary.
Yes, yes.
I just find it so fascinating.
Well, I wish they had sung the Hebrew words too.
Yeah. So in YouTube, you can search for that too, because wasn't it about a year ago, I think.
Oh, it was longer ago than that, but it was a year ago that I found it.
That we found it.
It's from a former cantor at Central Synagogue.
Singing sanctuary.
In Hebrew.
In Hebrew. And just talking about the sort of the holy spaces in between us. And that's what holds us together and heals. And that's where we find sanctuary, holiness.
If I can find that, I think I might have that bookmarked on YouTube, so I'll send that to you too.
Again. It's just so lovely. Okay, let us jump in here. You know, we're reading John 3 on Sunday, so you guys are all have all been prepared to listen to John 3. But today we are paying attention to John 7. So let us read through, I think we should read through. I don't know. Let's start with just through 9, and then we'll go from there. And remembering in John that we can read the Jews as the Jewish leaders. Not your average Jew on the street, but those in power. So who wants to start? John 7, 1 through 9.
I'll read.
Okay.
After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He did not wish to go about in Judea because the Jews were looking for an opportunity to kill him. Now the Jewish festival of booths was near. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea so that your disciples also may see the works you're doing. For no one who wants to be widely known acts in secret. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify against it that its works are evil. Go to the festival yourselves. I'm not going to this festival. My time has not yet fully come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. Is that as far as we were going?
Yeah.
Through 9, yeah.
I heard that completely differently this time. That's always good to hear.
Yeah.
Hear somebody read it.
Good news. The good news is quite different. It does not name the people as Jews that are after him.
What do they call?
They call them the authorities.
Yeah, that's a good
Mhm.
translation. The authorities, it's a good translation.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Jewish authorities.
yeah, that's a better,
Jewish authorities.
yeah.
Yeah. And even down here, the world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I keep telling it that its ways are bad. So rather than evil, it's saying it's bad. And
Yeah.
we use that term more often. You're bad.
I'm kind of fascinated by the interworking between Jesus and his brothers.
Yeah.
There's like a little poke there, you know, kind of like, well, you should go to Judea and talk to your people. And then he kind of replies, you know who I am, you do the talking. Or am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah. Not even his brothers believed in him. Hmm.
Sometimes the family is the worst for supporting you.
Yeah.
That appears to have been there.
So I find it fascinating that. Oh, okay. So he decides Jesus feels to me like he's acting a little petulant here too, you know. So after saying these things to his brothers, he says, "I'm staying here in Galilee." And then, but his brothers did go to the festival, and then he went to.
But he was wearing his hoodie.
I guess he wasn't gonna let anybody see him.
Right.
Let's go on to for 10 to I don't know, 10, let's go 10 to 18 right now. Who wants to read 10 to 18? 10 through 18.
I'll read it. But after his brothers had gone to the festival, then he also went, not publicly, but as it were in secret. The Jews were looking for him at the festival and saying, "Where is he?" And there was considerable complaining about him among the crowds. While some were saying, "He is a good man," others were saying, "No, he is deceiving the crowd." Yet no one would speak openly about him for fear of the Jews. About the middle, of course, it was the Jews who were saying this, so this is not a very good translation, I think, but about the middle of the festival, Jesus went up into the temple and began to teach. The Jews were astonished at it, saying, "How does this man have such learning when he has never been taught?" Then Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. Anyone who resolves to do the will of God will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own. Those who speak on their own seek their own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and there is nothing false in him."
Hmm. So my question, one of my questions, I have many questions, but one of my questions is, what do you think the author is trying to do here? Is he trying to establish Jesus's authority? I mean, if we keep remembering that, you know, belief, relationship, testimony are all really important themes to the author of John.
Well,
Hmm.
on page 73 in the book,
Mm-hmm.
the second
You know,
full
we're on the other
paragraph.
side of Jesus.
So Sharon is saying something on page 73 in the book. Go ahead, Sharon.
It's the paragraph that starts with Jesus answers. Where he says, "My teaching is not mine, but the one who sent me. Anyone who resolves to do the will of God will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own." And she says, "It's a subtle dig at the men who defend the law, but don't recognize God's teaching when they hear it."
Maybe not so subtle.
Yeah.
Well, and then so they don't get it. So Jesus drops the subtlety. Did not Moses give you the law? But not one of you keeps it. Why are you trying to kill? Boy, is that a lot can be heard loud and clear in our age today, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really points out how different Jesus was, right? He
Yeah.
came and he really stirred that pot,
Yeah.
and how uncomfortable everybody was with it.
Well, and how, if we want to relate it to today, there are people who push back against those in authority religiously, I'm speaking. I mean, people push back against those in authority secularly as well, but particularly those mainly white men, but not only white men always, it seems, but not always white men, who proclaim how everybody is to live and do not live that way themselves.
Yeah.
And the people who push against them get death threats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Boy.
I think we see it loud and clear today, but I don't know that. I think our human nature is that it's always happens in one form or another, maybe locally, maybe in this little pocket here, but now we just see it a bigger picture right now. I wonder though how much different it is today than say in the 60s and 70s, with the whole civil rights movement. And I think sometimes human nature doesn't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's there. It's just in our present time, it's just in our face, right?
Right. And so what's changed, what's changed over time? What's changed is how a person or a tribe understands the rest of the world and sees the rest of the world and how big the rest of the world is. I mean, that's one thing that's changed. And the other thing that's changed, of course, is communication. So that has greatly expanded our worlds. And so I think you're right in that, and that the sort of behavior that's kind of part of human nature, that is idolatry and grabbing power. Sadly, I mean, maybe that is Jane Syme, you raised the difference in translation between evil and bad. And I sometimes wonder if those aren't the things that are in fact evil, not just bad, but evil. Isn't that what the devil tempted Jesus with in the wilderness? That Jesus could have all the power. All he had to do was say the word and the devil would grant Jesus. The devil didn't have that to grant, but that's the way the story goes, that all Jesus had to do is say the word, and the devil would grant Jesus all that power.
I think you're right, but for the time of the day of Jesus to get across to his people, this translation says it's bad. That's
Yeah.
how we, it's really bad.
It is really, really bad. I sometimes think we are a little reticent to point out evil. I think it's really hard for
Yes, again, but
really hard for us to even talk.
it's harsh to other people. and
Yes.
They push us off when we do that.
Yes. Yes. It's hard to talk about evil.
Isn't it interesting that it's easy for us to allow, we see in culture, I'm not saying us as this group, but us to accept authority, bad authority and bad politicians. But yet on the other side, we're scared to point, then say that's evil, but it really is evil. It really is.
It really is evil.
We just all kind of want to stop and go, it's I wish he would just quit, but no, some of the stuff is plain out evil. And you're right. We have a hesitance to call it out, even though it's like in our face.
Right there in our face. Yeah. I mean, we could name today the evil in our world. If we have a reticence to name that within our own country, we don't even have to. We can name that outside of our own country.
It's interesting to think about. We started this conversation with community and healing, and we turn to the right and turn to the left, and then we circle around and we greet and comfort one another, right? And yet the opposite of that is authoritarian control that beats people down. And it's just interesting that in this half hour we've gone from that to seeing the opposite in scripture.
Well,
Sorry,
and I mean, I think you're exactly, I mean, I think it's a good thing to raise in that
when I start talking about evil, people back off because they don't want to recognize the spirituality.
I think evil is evil because it takes power. And it uses all sorts of words to what's the word I want to
dress it, make it look pretty.
Yeah, to make it look pretty. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's the difference too between, as we did talk about in the beginning, the circle and the community, and the sort of the jackhammer of authoritarianism. I'm gonna grab some more coffee, you guys. Keep going. I'll be right back.
And I was thinking, Annetta, when you said that we kind of go through waves of this, at least that's how I'm interpreting what you said, and talking about the 60s, and it made me think about liberation theology and how many of those who espoused liberation theology were killed for it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's
by the church.
And what's interesting when you say liberation theology, the opposite of that is the dominion theology, right? Which is what we're seeing come to power in this Christian nationalism.
Yes.
And I find
5 people who espouse that sit on the Supreme Court.
Oh, exactly. But what's interesting is the words liberation and domination, right?
Tell me.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So liberate at
Tell me what liberation
at the core of
theology
liberation theology is the option for the poor. What's the word I'm missing? The God's option for the poor. Come on, what's that word? I'm missing it. It's a word that comes in there. Are you looking that up, Sharon?
I am. Liberation theology is a Christian theological approach emphasizing the liberation of the oppressed. It engages in socioeconomic analyses with social concern for the poor and political liberation for oppressed peoples, and addresses other forms of inequality, such as race or caste.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's raising up those
Thank
who
you.
are downtrodden. It's
Right. And the Vatican's continued pressure against the movement
Yeah.
was by arguing that liberation theology could lead to disunity and excessive focus on material success for
Ugh.
people who had
Nothing.
nothing. Nothing.
yeah, yeah. Preferential. I figured it out. God,
Yeah.
God's
Yeah.
preferential option for the poor and dispossessed. That's
And
the
in our time, I would say that someone who really espouses liberation theology and who has a new book coming out next month is Anne Lamott.
Yes.
Mhm.
I wanted to revisit that idea of evil
Mhm.
because I think we can agree there's agreement in what is good. Family is good, food is good, laughing is good. All these, you don't need to rationalize that, but evil always seems to need a component of rationalization. Well, we have to do this because, or in order to, or I don't want to do this, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's, I mean, I think that's where, I mean, one of the things that happens to us, I think in these days is, we flippantly say something like, well, when we hear about authoritarianism, we hear about, or we experience or see, things that don't seem to be like they have anything to do with Jesus's command in John to love your enemy. Is that we say things like, well, are we really reading the same Bible? How do you get that authoritarian view out of what Jesus had to do and had to say? And I don't know the answer
Out
to.
of a love attitude.
I don't know how you answer that question. Yeah. I mean, other than we need to do a lot more studying of our Old Testament scholars. Because I mean, people like Rabbi Sharon Brous aren't talking like that. People like this other fellow who I've been reading, Creation Untamed, which is a fabulous Old Testament book by Terence Freetime. He doesn't talk like that. I mean, his theology of creation is absolutely amazing. And he
Will
talks.
Gaffney definitely
Yeah.
doesn't talk
Yeah,
like that.
Will Gaffney doesn't talk like that. Yeah. So how does that happen? And I mean, here we have these people right here in John who just aren't listening. Or they're not listening, they don't have their eyes open.
Well, and they
I'm leaving
They don't-
because because the transmission is so bad, it isn't worth saying. I'm
Oh.
sorry about that.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, Jane.
they, it's not just that they don't listen, it's that they don't want to listen. Because if they did listen, they would lose some of their authority.
Well,
And power is everything.
yeah, or they'd prove that they have no sort of authority to stand on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I
they might
think
not.
human nature sometimes has us dig our heels in, right? And you know, after a while you're in so deep, your heels are in so deep, it's you're stuck. And if you have to dig yourself out, it takes a lot of moral courage to turn around at that point and say, I was wrong. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I mean, it's what I see in some people I know, that I think they've persuaded themselves that they're right. But also, if they turn and look another way, they put blinders on. They purposely put blinders on because it's hard to turn around and say, well, yeah, look at all the people I hurt. Look at all the things I did. And
I think it's also a complete misunderstanding of how God acts in this world. I mean, I think that it's even a harder thing because we know that transformation happens on the floor, right? Transformation happens in the ditch. Transformation happens
at the bottom.
At the bottom. That God stoops into our existence to the very, very lowest possible place and takes us by the hand and picks us up or just picks us up. And that I think that is that whole idea that I mean that's why incarnation is a scandal, right? Because God stoops into our existence and makes God's self as low, if you will.
And that doesn't fit with authority then.
Exactly. It
Because
does.
this is a God that becomes low when we worship power and money, or even the appearance of, as we can see with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, it's very, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So
think
then what is it that breaks that? Because we've seen that cycle broken in the past. And I mean, it seems to always come back. But what is it that can break that? Except just hitting the bottom as a culture.
yeah. Well, I think the great sadness is that what the story proves to us is that we are made low. We are, and we have to crash and burn in order to raise up, to be resurrected, to have this new life. I mean,
That's very hopeful, Kathy. That just gives us all so much hope.
you know, I don't. For some of us, you know, the crashing and burning is a you know, a one-time culmination deal of life, and a life gets turned around and transformed, and there is hope, and there's resurrection, and there's new life, and sometimes that happens like over and over and over again. So the crashing and burning isn't nearly as evident. But when you have huge institutions that have gathered around them built around them, a wall so high and so thick that it can't be penetrated. How the only thing that could happen is that gets blown up.
Yeah.
And I wonder about that sometimes. What is it that, I mean, Jesus turned the tables in the temple. That was a crashing and burning. That was, I mean, that was, yeah. I mean, what is it that has to happen for people to commit themselves to loving one another? I mean, I think we thought it was, well, we did some really good things during COVID, right? I think we thought it was 9/11. We had some really good stuff happen out of that. We thought we crashed and burned then, but we, went right back to
Yeah,
our
look
way.
what we did to the Iraqis.
Yeah.
That was not a very good thing that came out of 9/11. But maybe it takes crucifixion and resurrection.
That's right. I don't think there's a maybe in front of that. I think that's what it takes. So what does
And
that?
that's the amazing thing about God stooping in the form of Jesus
Mhm.
to us, that, I mean, the temptation in the wilderness, really, it wasn't the devil who had the power to do that. Jesus could always have done that
Right.
because he was God.
Yeah.
And yet, in order to, I don't want to confine it to teach this lesson, but for us to see, he had to let it play out.
Yeah.
This is generational too, like, right? As one generation, or like, I can't do this for my children. I can't crash and burn for them. That can only happen. It's a very, I think it can be both personal, happen personally, and happen like in a corporate group. But I don't think that the next generation can know that until they go through it.
I
And
used
that's
to
one of the
have,
hard things for a parent to watch, to know, right?
yeah, I used to have a friend who would say, you can't make other people's mistakes for them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly. But what we can do is tell the truth of our own brokenness, our own crashing and burning. And that I think we don't do, because it's so hard. As a parent, are we willing to lay that bare and say, look, it's, in a world where I need to show them how strong I am, when do I say, you know what? This is when my heart's been broken. This is when I could hardly pick myself up off the floor. This is where I saw Jesus pick me up and bring me new life.
And often your children don't care to hear that.
Because they don't want to see us as broken people either. But, yeah.
I always think too that we hear a lot of people talk about, oh, I can't think of the word right now, but basically where there's this rush of the Holy Spirit and there's this big transformation of hundreds of thousands of people and there's a big change in the world. And I don't actually believe that. I think that it's always going to be a small group of people who believe, and we're going to be scattered. And the very fact there are 4 of us here, and look at how many miles apart we are. It's that doesn't mean there aren't people in my community. It's just I just think that it's a smaller group than we think, and the change, if it happens individually and corporately, it's not happening like, wow, the US came to an understanding, which would be terrifying, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be Christian nationalism? Sorry, now I'm just talking. But I
Yeah,
think
but you're
it's,
talking to 3 other people who would agree with you.
Yeah.
so anyway, I think it's interesting that it's we talk about that as being this sweeping change, and yet I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, and I think that does go to this weirdness of Christian nationalism, is that, I mean, if we were a Christian nation, then all the problems would be solved. If we were a Christian nation, if those in authority could make everyone else believe just like they believed and do just like they did, then
Just like they said to do.
yeah, just like they think they're doing, whatever that is, then all would be well. And we've seen what happens throughout history when that sort of transition is made, and we know that doesn't work either. That it is exactly as you said, Annetta. It is in the turning of hearts and communities. And so we are called, at least I think we are called to be lovers in our own places and in our own ways, that and to continue in the midst of a conversation like this, to continue to have hope.
But it's getting harder and harder.
It is. It's getting harder and harder. Yeah. I had a young woman, well, not too much, but 20 years, maybe 20 years younger than me. Yesterday we were having a conversation at church, and she we were just talking about the difference, or some of the differences in time and place, and how when it's a 300, I mean, even so what's the first democracy? The Greek democracy lasted about 300 years till it fell. Roman democracy didn't even last hardly at all. And the United States of America is really the 3rd democracy on record, in recorded history anyway. And we're pushing 300 years. 300 years of this democratic experiment. And can it continue? I mean, that's the huge question we're facing today, is can democracy continue? And
So remember, like years ago, I remember asking in some group that we had via Zoom, must have been during COVID, asking if those who were living during the fall of the Roman Empire realized it.
Yeah.
And I guess now my answer would be yes. Some did. Some welcomed it because it took away their responsibility everything was going to be laid out for them. But some realized what was happening.
And yet, even in those two democracies, there only the wealthy were really free, right? And here this has been a little bit of a different experiment in that there are, even though it's a hard road, the reason people scramble to come here is the opportunity, the possibility. So I think maybe more of us know that it's coming to an end because most of us aren't in that rich, wealthy, and a lot of them are gonna be fine, right? It's the rest of us that are gonna be like, oh, guess I better keep my mouth shut there, right? I think that's gonna be a lot of what we're going to encounter,
Yeah.
as well as economic crash for most of us. And maybe we won't be able to go to the church of our choice. We'll have to go to the big super church down the street, huh?
Well, I mean, yeah. And so what happens
Here,
is
take a
that-
deep breath.
is that this goes underground, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that before.
Yeah. What happens to communities like Ikar, which is Rabbi Browse's,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't call themselves a synagogue. They call themselves a community, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my regrets are, and I'm, as I'm sure yours are too, is, you know, what is it we are leaving for our grandchildren?
Of course.
And that, you know, that's the most heartbreaking part. That, you know.
Yeah. And I think about where can I send her where she'll be safe?
Yeah.
Because she won't be safe here.
No.
But where can I send her where she'll be safe?
New
And
Zealand.
yet,
What place is safe now?
but yet, aren't we, is that, I mean, I hear you. I feel that. I really feel that. But I ask myself, is that really the right response, right? Is it not that we're called to work, called to fight, I mean, not fight but to be the resistance.
Right. So do we form fighters? Do we form the resistance? I mean, I think that's been something I've been trying to do for years now, is to be a part of that resistance.
So we have
And
to pass that to them. And so as much as I would like to send them somewhere safe, that's not, we're supposed to live where we are, right? We're supposed to be effective where we are. I mean, I don't say that because I'm excited about it. It's just
no, I mean, my particular worry about her is that since she can barely fight to exist,
yeah.
that she will not be able to deal with
Yeah.
what's coming.
It's hard.
And you know, I know that, I mean, I could see always that you, Kathy, are one of the fighters,
Mhm.
and I can see what it's cost you.
Mm. Yeah. The cost is high, isn't it?
It is.
But, you know, I guess we can't, well, we could give up. But, and a
No.
lot of people have given up, I think.
Yeah. But this scripture, this story that we keep, you all keep at and stay in, calls us, continues to call us, and says to us, I mean, just as Sharon did, it'll cost you a lot.
Mhm.
Are you in? It will cost you your life.
Mm.
Are you in?
Mhm. It's kind of a Peter moment. To whom shall we go? You have the words. What else is there?
What else is there? What else is there? I mean, what, when people ask the question, it comes in all sorts of kinds of ways. Why are you a Christian? Have you ever doubted, et cetera, et cetera? It's like, what else?
Yes, and yes.
Yes, but what other way is there? What other way is there? What other way is worth your life?
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
I had a question about this week. Now I have to find it. And it is maybe an 8. I don't know. But Jesus keeps talking about it being God who sent him, that if they knew God, they would know him.
Yes, that's on page 74. I had a question on that too.
Well, and I got to 76.
Did it
And
answer?
the talk about the second witness. No, it didn't.
it?
Because I think that there are many who know God in different ways
Mhm.
from the way we would say we know God. And I think the easy road is to say that Jesus is saying those ways don't count. You either know me or you know nothing.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that. I just can't believe that. And I wonder if what Jesus is saying is a reaction to the arrogance and violence of the people who refuse to acknowledge that authoritarian class.
Mm.
Because people like Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu are welcome to believe however they want to believe, but not to exterminate others because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump may not be there yet. Netanyahu absolutely is.
No.
Putin is.
Yeah.
And Putin is, yes. And they do it. Netanyahu would tell you he's doing it because that's the only way to keep Jewish people safe. Well, pardon my French, but bullshit.
I think
Um,
that's what I was feeling about that idea of you have to explain evil or rationalize evil.
Yeah.
There's always that component there.
And we say the big names, right? The big names of these evil people. But how many people are it's the people behind the scenes who two steps back that are doing the rationalizing
Mhm.
because those people aren't
Right.
rationalizing. it
All
very
those
well.
settlers on the West Bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna speak to what I consider to be my own people.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, that kind of thing is horrible. People who have been interviewed and saying, oh, they voted for Nikki Haley, not Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a lunatic. Well, then will you vote for Biden? No, I'll have to vote for Trump. For a lunatic?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd rather vote for a lunatic than a Democrat. That's
Yep.
it's the only thing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have
I'd rather vote for a lunatic than a mensch.
I have to get moving.
Mm.
I've got another meeting here.
Oh,
For a
lucky you.
retired woman. I got another meeting. I went and volunteered to be part of my high school class reunion planning.
There you go.
So let's go through let's read through 8. What is it? 10? Yeah. Chapter 8, verse 10. Let's read through that and see how far we get again.
Okay.
We only have 1 page in our book, but but there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not reading up to 9?
Up to 9 in the Bible?
Yeah,
Well, I want to read, I mean, let's read through the stoning. Is that the stoning?
the woman caught in adultery.
Yeah. Do you want to go through 9? Up to 9? Okay, let's read up to 9 and we get as far as we get.
Okay.
Okay,
All
doke.
right.
That
Sounds
works.
okie doke. See ya.
Have a great day.
Have a good weekend.
I'll see
You
ya.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.